Hi, my name is Pryce Yebesi. I'm one of the co-founders of Utopia Labs. We're a DAO tooling startup really focused on helping DAOs scale. And yeah, so the name of my talk is Scaling DAO Operations, quite fitting. And Scaling DAO Operations, Decentralized Tooling for Digital Works. We're going to be covering what are DAO ops, how are DAO operations structured, governance, coordination, execution, evolving infrastructure and operations for DAOs, and the needs of DAO orgs at scale. So first and foremost, it's ETH Denver. You probably all know what a DAO is. But to really just guide this conversation, I thought it would be best to lay out a definition of what a DAO is. And so while most, it's usually, it's kind of limiting to try and define a DAO because there's just so much that can be achieved and there's so many exploratory things happening in the space right now. But a definition I would love to use to guide our conversation today is an autonomous associations of persons united voluntarily to meet their common economic, social, cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. So moving on, if we're talking about scaling DAO ops, what are DAO ops? And so if DAOs are these distributed autonomous organizations where people all over the world can collaborate and work together, a definition for DAO operations could be DAO operations are the practice of coordinating a distributed group of people to operate an organization while governed by a group of token holders. And so next, would love to talk a bit more about the operational layers of how DAO operation works. So first and foremost, there's the governance layer. And so this is how communities make the overarching decisions that impact how their organizations will grow and operate. These decisions are often around project focus, assigning leadership, sometimes getting rid of leadership, and most importantly, approving the use of treasury funds. And so oftentimes this is like how communities vote with tokens or NFTs. And so next is the coordination layer. And so this is how distributed organizations organize the human capital of their groups to achieve the common economic, social, and cultural objectives of their DAOs. And the execution layer. This is how organizations get assets from their treasury to compensate the people driving these organizations forward, and as well as other necessary expenses. And so next, it would be I would love to talk a bit more about the tools at each layer in this stack. And so I'm missing a lot, quite a lot of tools, but here's a couple I wanted to just showcase for the use of this conversation. So first and foremost, on the governance layer, there's Tally, and they're a pretty awesome UI for being able to submit proposals and vote on them. There's Snapshot. It's a similar tool, but super prevailing. A lot of DAOs use that to organize and vote on whole token votes on certain proposals, or have their community members be able to submit these proposals and vote on them. On the coordination layer, two tools I'd love to talk a bit more about is one, Coordinape is a really awesome protocol for distributed teams to be able to work together and really assign value based on this intimate working group of how they feel like everyone should be compensated. And so these working groups work together, assign value, and from there the protocol can generate basically how much each person should be compensated based on the feedback from their working group. Another group I'd love to talk about is Wonderverse. And so basically what they've created is a decentralized job board, more like a bounty board. And so what this allows is for decentralized teams to be able to organize the projects they're working on, split it up into projects, and then allow people to come and go and do the work as they please or what they're interested in doing, and also organize the internal operations of these DAOs. And so next, would love to talk a bit about the execution layer. And so first and foremost, there's Gnosis Save. It's one of the prevailing primitives for how DAOs are organized today. It's a treasury wallet that has multiple signers, and a lot of DAOs use that to hold their treasury. And from this wallet, you can execute certain transactions based on the signers having signed off at a certain threshold. And next, of course, Utopia Labs. And so we're a layer on top of Gnosis Safe that provides context-rich executions for these organizations to be able to track and manage their spends as well as expenses. So a little bit more about uh, the how we're thinking about how these organizations can scale. And so one thesis we have is that interoperability across these layers of governance, coordination, and execution allows these organizations to scale because there's less needs for centralized operators. These working groups can self-govern and work in autonomous space. So if we're thinking about how the next 1,000 or million people are going to be able to work in DAOs, you can't have really centralized operators really directing every which way that these organizations govern themselves. So how does this look in practice? So two tools that I think have been really amazing leaders in this space of really blending these layers of operation and coordination have been the Zodiac module by the Gnosis Guild. And so a similar group to it's a part of the same group that made that earlier primitive we talked about, the Gnosis Safe. What they've built is a layer that allows for automatic executions based on token votes of certain payments. So someone can make a proposal for a payment, and then if that proposal passes, then the execution goes through and the payment is sent. Another really amazing tool that that has been a leader in this space is Optimistic Governance by Aragon. And so basically the way this tool is structured is anyone can request, or not any, a group of verified people can request any funds from a certain wallet or treasury, just and that will go through unless there's a vote, someone votes against it. And so this is a really exciting model in which it's basically this layer of trust amongst so many working teams that if these people will be able to coordinate and organize in these smaller working groups. And so sort of speaking about smaller working groups, another interesting topic that really plays into this idea of interoperability and being able to have these groups be able coordinate and coordinate at a faster and more efficient level are sub-DAOs. And so a definition I love of a sub-DAO is a DAO created or spun out of a parent DAO. Sub-DAOs offer a medium for working groups to create their own foundation and ownership structure, all while tying value back to the originating entity. So a lot of these organizations are spun out of an original DAO, and so they have a purpose or a focus on trying to really narrow into either a project or a product or a division that they really want to focus on and spend a lot of time working on. So this group is able to self-govern and basically become its own DAO under the hierarchy of this parent DAO. And so what this smaller working group allows for is faster coordination, execution, governance, because not only are they more focused on this specific project or purpose, they're also working so closely together to provide to push this forward. So another thing, and I think one thing that goes hand in hand with this idea of these DAOs that are working under this parent DAO is how can a parent DAO, if they have this overarching missions or projects that they want to achieve, how can they work with these sub DAOs to be able to push those forward even after they've spun out of a DAO? And so one really interesting idea for this is meta-governance. And so meta-governance has a really interesting connotation with curve wars and a lot of interesting things. But at the end of the day, it could also be a really amazing mechanism for this parent DAO that has value accrued from each of these sub DAOs to be able to help guide decisions to really achieve a lot of their overarching goals. And so this idea of a nested proposal is a proposal that this parent DAO could make to its sub DAOs to basically ask or try to guide this a decision to help with an overarching decision. So say there's a product that the overarching DAO wants to push forward, and so they could say if there's a certain sub-DAO that might focus on design or engineering or marketing, they can work with those DAOs and launch these nested proposals to try and guide them to a certain solution. So yeah. So next, I think one thing we've also talked about is that there's quite a difference between the thinking of scaling DAOs as just more people joining a DAOs, like how are we going to organize and coordinate thousands or millions of people? There's also the evolving needs of these organizations. And so we at Utopia, we've been working with a lot of really amazing DAOs and groups, and their needs as they mature as organizations are changing. They have core contributors that need healthcare, benefits, payroll, and even in the case in the more specific cases of DAOs, token vesting. And so these core contributors, they're working at these DAOs as their full-time jobs. And so they have the same needs that anyone else who works a job has. They need to pay the rent, feed their families. And so really working to really put that first in how these organizations are being developed and how they're growing is incredibly important, and it's also what we've been hearing from the organizations we work with. And as well as that, there's also just organizational needs as these groups mature. So one thing we've heard from a lot of the groups we work with is more needs for bookkeeping, budgeting, financial reporting. And some of the things we're rolling out at Utopia are multi-wallet bookkeeping, a solution to help DAOs better manage their transactions, as well as transparent financial reporting to allow them and their communities to be aware of how money is being spent and how they're allocating funds. So, thank you. That's all from me. I'd also love to say that these ideas and concepts weren't developed in a silo. We have a lot of really amazing team conversations about that. So thanks to the Utopia team, as well as the amazing DAOs and customers that we get to work with every day that really help us shape these communities that are being built and help them push forward the needs that they have. At Utopia, we're really focused on this idea of building with DAOs rather than for them, and so really taking into their needs into account, because we really believe that the DAOs are the next prevailing form of how global organizations are going to be formed, and people are going to organize and build amazing things together. So, yeah, that's all from me.
Awesome. All right, if we get a couple questions.
Sure.
We have about 10 minutes. Wait for the mic, and I'll bring it to you.
Hi, my question was about the sub-DAOs. I'm wondering if you guys know about the tax or legal implications of having sub-DAOs and parent DAOs.